first episode of, oh my God, I think we're calling it Coffeeshop Book Chats with the Book Doctor, but I might be wrong. So forgive me if you just watched the intro and you're like, Caroline, that is not what the show is called. I'm Caroline Donahue, and my guest today is Heidi Fiedler, who is such a good sport. Essentially, I wanted to start this show, A, because YouTube, why not? And B, because I rearranged my office and look how cool it looks with the books behind me. I'm really pleased with that. And then the third thing was we just have booked out the podcast through like several months in advance, and I still want to talk about books. It's not enough. I can't be stopped. So welcome to the YouTube experience, and thanks for coming on with me, Heidi.
Thanks for having me. I like talking about books with book people. I always come away from that feeling like, that was nice, that was fun.
Yeah, it's like things that you always feel good afterward, like yoga class. You're like, that was a good idea.
Yeah, we should do that more.
See, I've got coffee for Coffeeshop. I'm brand appropriate. So what are you reading now that you're pumped about?
Right now on my book stand is Dear Data, which is this, it's probably 8.5 by 11 paperback book, and it's a collection of postcards that these two graphic designers sent to each other over the course of a year. And they
I love that.
It's gorgeous, it's thoughtful, it's interesting. One is Italian and one is American but living in England or something like that. But they're both graphic designers that are interested in infographics. And so they wanted to chart their own data, like things like how many doors they walked through in a week, how many compliments they gave and received in a week, like just random stuff, like what's in their closet, whatever was like kind of their theme. They would pick a theme for each week, and then they send each other a postcard. And the infographics that they draw on the postcard, like the actual infographic on the front, and then on the back is like a key, like here's what this symbol means, here's what this means. And then like maybe like a little observation, like, oh my gosh, I have like way too many black shirts or something like that. But they're so original and like personal, and one of the themes of the book is like data is personal. Like if you actually look at your own data, it's like a way to just be more self-aware. It's beautifully laid out. The whole thing is just like so well done. I'm like in love with this book right now.
All right, I'm already seeing that the problem is that I'm going to go straight from these conversations and start buying books, because as you can see, I don't have enough books. I'm really deprived.
I did not walk into the store wanting to buy this book, and I walked out with it.
Oh man, I am not surprised. Especially graphic designers, like anybody who has that beautiful handwriting. Like, I don't know if you know this site, Baumkuchen. I can barely say it. It's Baumkuchen, Baum-Kuchen. It's a kind of cake, but it's a stationery store, like Danger Alert, that's based in LA, and it's run by a Japanese woman who's married to a German man, and they have these adorable children. She calls them Germanies. But there's a woman who works for them, Eunice Rowe, who has the most insane handwriting I've ever seen. And so they post these pictures of like her handwriting these, pieces of mail on the Instagram. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? Like, that's just a letter you wrote to somebody? It's both inspiring and intimidating.
Yeah. It's interesting in this book too, because one of the designers is very detail oriented, and there's like 20 layers of like decoding each infographic that you're like, how does your brain, at least for me, I am not a Georgia, I'm a Stephanie in this book. Like, I'm like, that's not how my brain works. Stephanie is like big picture, like here's the 5 takeaways from this week. I'm like, those would be my postcards if I was able to draw a straight line and like wrote like that and thought in color and everything.
Oh my God, no, I know. I'm like text on a page or photographs. Both are fine, but drawing, no. That is not my job. That is his job over there on the other side of the office. Yeah, amazing. That sounds so cool. Okay, obsessed.
Yeah. It's a good one too because like it's like one spread before bed is like a week, which I want to be like someone that really gets in bed and reads for hours, and I used to be, but right now, like in this season of life, I get in bed and I basically can read a page or two. So this is like a nice like discrete chunk for me.
Yeah, so if you're tired, this is a good book for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading right now before bed. I brought a show and tell. I'm reading V.E. Schwab's latest book because she's awesome and also very attractive cover, I must say. They have great covers for her books. Although I saw the British editions and I was like, ugh! I was like, stop buying books. Just stop it. This is the problem with the tech world now, is that you can see other countries' versions of books and then want them too.
Yeah. I've made a personal promise, I don't know how long this will last, but to buy books on Amazon that I haven't seen in person, only if I think I couldn't get them in a regular bookstore. I mean, obviously you want to always buy indie and like it's much more satisfying to just happen on a book or whatever, but I was buying so many books that were just like click, send, and then I got it and I just wasn't like in the mood for it anymore. It just was like spoiling a little for me. So I'm using it more as like, these are the esoteric books that I can't get anywhere else. I will order those, but otherwise I'm going to like seek them out somewhere else.
Yeah, there are so many bookstores. It's true. I love finding a book in a bookshop so much. And there are so many there are a lot of them in LA, so I enjoy going on that little discovery. The problem is, yeah, it does. The problem is going into an actual bookstore is dangerous. Do you have any policies?
Pile, you're like,
oh, God.
You really shouldn't be here. So, like, it's not as fun sometimes to look when you're like, well, I have 10 other books I should be reading.
Oh my God, 10? I would be thrilled if it was only 10. I've got a whole bookshelf in the bedroom that is books that are like to read. It's a bookshelf. The size of this one, maybe slightly smaller. This one goes all the way up.
Makes me feel better.
Yeah, no, you're not alone. You're not alone. No, it's true. And I go into a bookstore and it's like walking into an open air drug den. And I'm like, I get that book smell. I know. And you're just like, can I get out of here with fewer than 3? Recently, I've been able to get out with 1. That has never really happened until this year.
That's pretty good.
It's okay. It's like I'll go to an event and I'll be like, I'm getting the book for this event.
Now, when you have your pile, are you like, I'm going to read the thing that's on top that I just bought? Are you going to read the oldest thing? Are you going to read the thing that calls to you? Like, if you go to your to-be-read pile, how do you strategize?
I'm very emotionally oriented, I would say. It's like, what do I need right now? Like, I was reading a bunch of books that felt kind of nonfiction, kind of how-to helpful kind of stuff. Like I have Rebecca Solnit's Hope in the Dark at the moment. And there was a period like a couple months ago where I couldn't handle anything really long. It just felt like, oh, I can't take it. So I just read Walter Mosley's This Year You Will Write Your Novel, which is both applicable and manageable. So that was a good one. But so I was just like, I can't handle it. And then this one came out and I was just like, oh, I love her. And she was so good on the show and I just want to read it. So, and it feels like I'm excited to go to bed and read it because I read a lot when I go to bed, usually. I'm a terrible sleeper. That's basically my thing. People are like, how do you read so much? I'm like, I'm a terrible sleeper. That is the answer. You can trade sleep for being a good reader. It's what happens.
It's better than staring at your phone or like just going through your to-do list, like feeling like you should be doing something.
I know, totally. I do sometimes play games on my phone. I'm embarrassed to admit. I do that. It like turns the brain off and then I start reading and then I'm like, oh, this is better.
Yeah.
Shut off the day and now we turn on the book.
Yeah. I had a kind of burnout with the how to. I go in cycles of like, okay, this looks fascinating. I really want to read this. And like, also I want to be reading it while other people are reading it and like talk about it with them. And it seems like, at least in my circles, there's a lot of how-to books going around. But then every so often I'm like, I need to just be and like escape into a book. And I need a story and something that I don't really care about, but just as good.
I don't want to be improved upon.
I know. No.
I don't want to improve. This happened to me when I was in therapy school. When I was in school for therapy, it was like we're reading all of these books about like processing your life. And we were in all these classes processing your life. And at a certain point, like I felt like Velveeta. I was like, there's nothing left to process. Like I need to go and live for a while.
Yeah.
In order to have something to talk about, because it's all been gone through so many times. I mean, it was nice because now I feel like, yeah, that stuff is handled. But you have to have new stuff.
Yeah. Well, and if you are a reader that like reads in bed at night, like that's not what you want to do right before you go to sleep. Like get in the deep.
I can't read anything that's too exciting or motivating or makes me want to do something. Because then I really want sleep. Like it has to be transition into something that might happen in a dream, or I can sometimes read nonfiction if it's like a memoir or more narrative, but the how-to stuff I really have to read during the day or first thing in the morning if I'm like, yeah, let's go get it.
Yeah. Do you feel a guilt or a tension of like trying to balance magazine reading with book reading?
Not really, because I'm a terrible magazine reader.
Really?
Yeah, I will read specific articles. Like we get The Atlantic, we get Bust, and we get The New Yorker. And he is definitely a much more aggressive New Yorker reader than I am. And so I kind of use him as a filter. And he'll be like, this is great. And I'm like, okay, cool. But I'm like the dork who flips through and is like, look, this cartoon is funny. I'm going to take a picture and send it to my dad. But like my long form reading is definitely more book oriented, for sure.
I think I used to be all book or 90% book. And then for a while I was probably 80% magazines because it was just so much easier to pick up and put down and be like, okay, I've looked at that, or I've looked at a portion of that. I don't have to carry that thought through. And now I'm like, sometimes I'm really craving a book and like that long form, or just like the escapism of it. Sometimes magazines can be all how-to-y too on you, and you're like, I was just trying to escape here. I didn't need to grow like in this magazine. But
well, do you find that magazines are good for you because you don't work in magazines? And since you work in books, because sometimes I have tension where I'm reading a ton of stuff for people I'm interviewing on the show. And I'm like, I read it in a different way because I'm like looking for good questions, and you have to read so much to look for through line and plot and structure and editing and all of that. Does magazine reading sometimes feel like more of an escape?
That's true. Yeah, I think it is. And I think it's like, it's aspirational in the same way that Pinterest or Instagram might be. And it's just like that piece of it feels lighter or less like something to be accomplished. If I have never felt like, gosh, I really can't get through this magazine. Like, I mean, I'm not like someone.
This is hard work. This magazine.
Yeah, there's some books where you're just like, I don't know why I started this or whatever. And yeah, I think because I really like magazines because they are physical and you are in it. I feel like I'm paying attention when I'm reading a magazine usually. And I like reading weird magazines, things that I wouldn't, or like niche things that I wouldn't want to read a whole book on. There's a lot of things that I think like, that doesn't need to be 300 pages. I almost got that from the headline, and really like I got that plenty from like the 4-page article. Like,
yeah, you're like, just stop there.
I'm good. Like I got what I needed there. So I like books, obviously, but I do love magazines. And also, this is like a real shallow reason, but like magazines flop open really good. And so like at breakfast or something like that, to me, that's like an easy read. Like I'm more like a magazine out for that reason. Unless I want to like crank open the book and like slap my phone down and like weigh it down or something. I don't know.
No, it's true. I mean, that's why I like the library book on the Kindle approach. It's sometimes easier to read at meals.
Yeah. Convenience.
So totally convenience. So now you've learned it here. We are both deep readers and shallow readers.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing to know.
Yeah. I don't think you have to really defend how you read. Like, it's fine, however it is, and that's not something to get too guilty about. Probably every serious reader I know has had a drought where they couldn't finish a book for a while, and they were like identity crisis, like, oh my gosh, I have that. Finished the book in a year. Like, what does it mean? Like, I'm not a good reader. I'm broken. And I'm like, just keep going. You'll find one, and one will get you through, and it'll be fine.
The hot tip on that, actually, I was talking to my aunt because I had a period like that, and I told my aunt about it, who is a hardcore reader. And she said what she does is that she starts reading Nancy Drew. When she can't get through a book, she's just like, I just read a Nancy Drew, and it's great. It restores my confidence, and I'm all set.
That's a good idea. I think the last time I had a real serious drought was when I worked in a bookstore, and I was like just constantly flipping through books to get a sense of what they were about, to recommend them, but there were just so many, you could not really wrap your head around that many, and I don't know, I was just in a place where it was hard to finish them for some reason, and I picked up a bunch of things I didn't care about or whatever. And then I think I read The Lovely Bones, and it was one of those ones where I didn't know what I was getting into when I started. Oh my
God.
I was just like, oh, I'm awake, I'm better.
That is so intense.
Gotta finish this book.
It's so intense, yeah. I had a drought after reading A Little Life because I couldn't find anything. It was like it blasted me so intensely, and it was such an intense experience reading it that I couldn't find anything to read afterwards. And I've had other people feel that way to the extent where I have like this list of here's what to read after you read A Little Life. I should probably put that in a blog post. But maybe we'll put that together for people. Yeah. I think this is a good start. Thanks for coming on and doing this experiment with me.
Of course. I love talking books.
I know, it's good. And I hope any magazine readers out there feel less guilty, and that everybody feels less guilty.
Don't feel like you have to choose. We can be both.
Yeah, reading is reading.